Right, guys. Hello, hello, hello. Where's everybody at tonight? Look, y'all, I done had to put this hair up in a do. It is gonna have to do tonight. Want to welcome everybody in on tonight. Got a little bit of a new feature in tonight. Nini, I got it to work. I played with it today and got it to work a little bit. So, all righty. Let's see if I can get that talk back. There we go. I can see everybody. Hey there, Miss Tina. Glad to have you tonight. Glad to have you joining us. We're going to give everybody just a few minutes to join in on tonight. And if y'all would do me a favor and share as well, let me know if you can hear me also. Can you guys hear me out there? I know the music is playing and it's doing what it's supposed to do. The hairdo. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I had to do some magic on this stuff today. Yeah, what you said, it's doing what it's supposed to do. It is. Yay, look at you. Yeah, I had to get in there and play with it. Look, it was not as hard as I thought it was gonna be. Thank you. It wasn't as hard as I thought it was gonna be because I remember we did do this quite a bit back in, I think it was 2019 or 2020 when the pandemic took place. So good evening, Raynette. Good to see you on tonight. It's so good to see you. Glad you guys can hear me as well. If y'all would do me a favor and share with others, you can send it out on your personal pages. You can do whatever you need to do. Yeah, we trying to move to some new and improved, little media, social media ways of getting, more people out there, and we want to try to do everything we can to make sure that our voices are being heard. So if y'all would do me a favor and share with others, I would definitely appreciate it. Look, listen, when y'all put your comments up, y'all, I can pop them up on the screen now. So if you have anything that you want to share and add to the comments, you can do that. And we're going to see if we can dialogue together with each other. Miss Sheila, good to see you tonight. We appreciate you joining in with us, and so glad to have you with us. So glad to have you with us. Y'all keep coming in. I hope everybody has had a great day today, whether you were at work, you were at home, those of you that were, double dipping, kind of like me. I take little breaks in between to go do other things, kind of break the monotony. But, nevertheless, still trying to show up where I need to show up at. And really appreciate it. Harlan, we got it working. I told you it was gonna be May before we got it done, but we got it working on here. Good evening, Maria. And I listen, I was too busy in the background trying to get this stuff done. I didn't even get to get back with you either. But this is what it looks like when it kind of goes out there on StreamYard. So this is another avenue besides Zoom that you can work with. And for those of you that have not had an opportunity to use this feature yet, it's a great addition to the social media world. So I really like it. Y'all keep putting those hearts out there. I see those coming as well. And we'll see if we can get some stuff going tonight. Y'all, we have a wonderful, wonderful segment, a conversation piece on tonight. We are continuing on. We're talking about the evolution in friendships. And boy, we're going to talk about those toxic relationships. And not only just toxic relationships, but how to deal with them. I think it's very important that we be able to identify what toxic relationships look like, and, when they are maybe in hidden disguise, because some of them can be hidden and in disguise. And we want to definitely get in there and kind of get behind things because we don't want anything that causes us to stumble or trip over things or causes us not to, live the best life that God has given to us. So some of those things that have toxic natures around them, we're going to see if we can identify those and then put them in their proper places, because I really believe that God has some great things in store for his children, but he also wants us to be alert and he wants us to be aware. Keep your eyes open and, be attentive to the things that are going on around you. Amen. Amen. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started tonight. I am super excited to come forward with the message on tonight. Y'all, I got about 3 different gadgets over here, so I'm gonna try to work work the magic with all of them and still have conversation. Y'all feel free to put your comments in the chat box, and every now and then I'll highlight a couple of comments that are being made, especially if you have a question or you have a statement. Just put your comment in the chat box over there, and I'll be sure to highlight it so that we all can maybe talk about it as we kind of move along. But once again, my name is Marilyn Pettigrew. For those of you that may be newbies joining in tonight, this is our relational real talk. We used to have a podcast or a a kind of a segment entitled Singles Let's Talk. And in the Singles Let's Talk, we talked about relationships all the time and how these relationships were affecting us, whether good, whether they were some blind spots or whatever it was. And it was really, really a great avenue for conversation, especially for singles. And then also, it was a place to where we can sit down and, get um, maybe feedback from others that were there to kind of hear the experiences that they were having. Because the last thing you want to do is feel like you are kind of going through some things all by yourself. And believe it or not, I promise you, you are not alone with a lot of the things. So these real time conversations that we have, it's with the hopes that we all can jump in and not have to go to bed with heaviness on your heart, or not having unanswered questions to a lot of things. Sometimes you just have to jump in some of these support groups so that you can, kind of hear what the masses are. Because 9 times out of 10, when the enemy is playing around with one, he's playing around with many. He plays around with our relationships, he plays around with our families, with our children, and you have to learn how to navigate through a lot of those things. Tonight, we're going to have a conversation around what we call evolution in friendships or relationships. We've talked a lot about it over the last couple of weeks, but there's one topic in particular that I wanted to hit on that I think is very important, and it's entitled Dealing with Toxic Relationships, the impact of toxic relationships, and then how to recover from it. The impact of toxic relationships and how to recover from them. One of the things that I am assured of is that at some point in time we have all dealt with toxic relationship, whether it was on the job, whether it was in family, in friends, in schools. It could have been just passing through neighbor. It could be your neighborhood. It could be anything. It could be with in-laws. It could be with you know, acquaintances. It could be a lot of different things. I think the thing that hurts us sometimes is when we can't recognize when toxic relationships are before us, because sometimes they can disguise themselves. They can disguise themselves through manipulation. They can disguise themselves through what we call lack of respect. It can be through emotional or physical abuse. Could be constant drama. You ever dealt with that? Constant drama and conflicts. It could be a lot of different things out there. And we're going to talk about what they look like and see if we can kind of go into a little bit more detail with it. And y'all, like I said, feel free to jump in at any point of the conversation that you would like. And then we're going to see if we can, at the end of it, learn how to deal with them and bring about a happy ending to it all, because it's nothing like getting to the bottom of a thing and having some form of a happy ending, because I don't want this to continue to keep going on. So let's kind of look at what toxic relationships are and how they can really impact you. First of all, anything toxic, if you just think about it, if I think about something toxic, I'm going to think about something that's harmful to me. Poison. You can overeat. You can eat things that are not, good for you. You can live in unsafe environments. I remember when they had this big thing about the asbestos. You can be in locations where you're breathing in different things. You can have toxic environments to where there's a lot of smoke, and alcohol is very toxic. Anything that can create a poisonous effect to your life, whether it be physical, um, emotional. spiritual. You can have spiritual toxicity as well. Any of those things that can bring harm to you, you want to definitely get up underneath those things, bring it to the surface, and then ask God how to deal with it. Um, Toxic relationships, they are deeply impactful. When I say deeply, it can change your mood, can change your attitude. It can cause you to become. You ever had anything? You ever felt like sometimes you were stuck in life and like you were constantly repeating the same cycle of things over and over again? You got things that hurt you so much that you're still talking about it 10, 20, 30 years later. There are individuals that are full grown and they're still having an effect on some things that happened to them when they were very young. There are also toxic behaviors that take places in our local churches, things that are deeply impactful, things that hurt, that they have long-term effects on us. And discussing these things is not a bad thing. It actually can promote healing. It can promote awareness, and then it also can create a healthier dynamic. Because the hardest thing sometimes is just bringing exposure. And you're not trying to expose the enemy per se. You're trying to expose whatever the toxicity is in our lives. And the reason I say that is sometimes we are toxic toward ourselves. When you don't treat yourself well, or you say negative things about yourself, not only do you let other people say it, but you repeat it and regurgitate those things. It could come from a lot of different ways. So it's not always the enemy on the outside that brings in toxic behavior. Sometimes it's us that does it, you know. And there are things like, in relationships, we call toxic relationships red flags. You ever had a red flag in a relationship? We call them deal breakers, and you have to recognize those things, or put some standards up before you so that you can have some form of a boundary around you, that you don't just let things happen to you or anything. There could be red flags like, little things like when the person comes in your home and, maybe disrespects you with, just calling you out your name and, different things like that. And then they come back and say things like, oh, that's just the way I talk, you know, or somebody may come in when you have asked them to take their shoes off when they come in a house, and they want to call you bougie or something like that. That's toxic, because you have asked for respect in the areas, and then there are individuals that decided that they did not want to show you that. That's toxicity. And it's even more toxic when you don't, back up what it is that you say, like, okay, I said what I said and I meant what I said. Maya Angelou said this thing. She said, when people show you who they are, you need to believe them. I don't think it's just by chance that you see different things that take place, and even within yourself as well. When you let something slide up under the rug, or when you let somebody say something slick to you, and you just, well, that's just the way they are, little things like that. Those are little bitty red flags when it comes down to recognizing sometimes when toxic behavior is right around you. I think one of the things that has to take place is that you have to learn how to identify when those things come in subtle. Yeah, my radars go off on certain things now, because I think in one season of my life, I was so very passive about a lot of things. You have to believe them the first time. I was so passive about behaviors or conversations that people had or whatever. One, I ain't have time to be fooling with it, you know. And you know, I have this thing about I choose my battles wisely. I don't have no time to be fooling with that. But sometimes you need to make a decision, fool with it. You know what I'm saying? You need to make a decision to say, you know what? Okay, enough is enough. I don't think that's a healthy behavior for you or I to deal with some things. Hey there, Miss Regina. You know, and you what Renette said, we have to stop excusing this bad behavior in people as well as ourselves. It's about taking accountability for things that are taking place. See, I teach people how to treat me, you know, the very moment that I just allow things to happen. Y'all, we used to have this thing when we were very young in friendships, you know, there's some toxicity that can take place in your friendships. You know, we would have friends that every time we got ready to go somewhere, they ain't never had no money. You know, they would get dressed, go the whole 9 yards, but would never have any money to do anything. And so there we were, we'd be going to the club or whatever, and you always had to pay their way through with everything. We didn't realize it back then that that was toxic behavior. That's a form of usury in some kind of way. We just felt like, hey, that's just our friend. We already know we're gonna have to bag them up every time until you get sick and tired of it. And sometimes that's how relationships fall apart when we don't say things when it first started coming up. I think it's very disrespectful to put your negative behavior on someone else and you don't give them a choice as to whether they want to participate in that or not. You know, like for instance, if that is the situation and you know that you don't have what you need to take care of, this is an equal thing. We listen, we all in high school, we all first fresh out of school, not having no good job or anything. That means we all broke, bottom line. And if we can scrape up whatever we need to pay for what we need to do, I think it's very disrespectful for somebody else to come in. I'm just talking about in hindsight. Back then, we didn't see that stuff back then, but it's very disrespectful to come in and say, oh, well, they can pay for mine or whatever. Because what you'll see is that's a behavior that people take into adulthood. They don't take responsibility for things. You know, they like all the grand ideas of things, but never want to support it in any kind of way. I'm telling you, that's a learned behavior and it's toxic. So learning to identify, I call it manipulation. It's a manipulative and controlling behavior, meaning I am going to control because that's exactly what you're doing. You got this thing called control upon you because what they gonna do? Turn me down? We all going to the club. We all going out. So what you gonna do? You gonna turn me down and say we can't go? Yeah, I think the first time that you tell them, well, we all going to the house. Ain't none of us going. If we always, or else we need to find something. If these are going to be our friends and we're going to be hanging out with them, we need to find a way that we can have some fun some other kind of way if we don't always have the money to back somebody else up. So sis, we may have to find a way to stay at the house and we're gonna have to cook some hamburgers, and we're gonna have to watch some Waiting to Excel. We're gonna have to do something else, but we cannot take on that toxic behavior. Listen, there's a saying: how you do one thing is how you do a lot of things. How you do one thing is how you do a lot of things. We normally take that same behavior into our relationships, our whether it be dating or marriage or whatever, because any place that you did not cut out the bad behavior, it's still lingering around. And we say things like, where they get that from? What no, where they do that at? That's what they say. Where they do that at? You know, and a lot of it just comes from, things that we have taught other people that was okay with us because you didn't say anything, you didn't do anything about it. So just learning that those are manipulative tactics called control that people use. And it's also what we call a disrespectful behavior. When you find people that are around you that are like that, you have to find a way to speak up about it before you start letting it kind of, I don't know, set in your heart. Because some of us have what we call passive behaviors and passive aggressive behaviors. We just stop talking to you. We won't say nothing else to you. You'll come to the party and we'll speak to everybody else but you. Sometimes it's that disrespectful behavior that causes those things. This is what happens in households too. When you find people that walk by each other and don't speak to each other, people that you're very close to, it's because there's some toxicity that's there somewhere. Anytime that you can walk in a house and nobody speaks to each other, and we just treat each other like a piece of furniture. We know the furniture can't talk back, and we treat each other like that. That's toxicity sitting around somewhere. Manipulation comes in when we're almost trick them into believing that's just the way people go about doing things. That's the way toxic people go about doing things. But there's a thing called common courtesy that when you walk into an environment, if you just came through the door, that's for you to speak. And you may say, well, they didn't speak to me, I'm not going to speak to them. That's toxic behavior right there. That's doing tit for tat. And the Bible even speaks against that. Don't if don't try to do evil for evil. The Lord says, don't even try to pay people back with things. He said that He will repay. He will take care of those things. Your responsibility is to make sure that the toxicity is not inside of you by repeating the things that you see. And I know sometimes it gets a little hard because we decide within ourselves that, you know what, I'm just not going to say nothing. I'm just going to keep the peace. I don't have time to be having no conversation about all this stuff over and over again. We just had this conversation last night. And I think there are times where we have to train ourselves not to allow toxicity to linger around us for long periods of time. And you have to learn how to get over things quickly or deal with things quickly. Otherwise, I promise you, it will rest inside of you too. I used to have this saying, and I know it was nobody but God that gave it to me. Be careful hanging around manipulators because you will become a manipulator. I'm going to say that again. Be very careful hanging around manipulators, people that dish out toxic behavior, and you don't respond to it properly because you will become a manipulator too. What do I mean by that? Anything that you allow to take place in your life that's not good and healthy for you, most of the time we throw that heat right back at them. And let me tell you what I mean by that. Say for instance, all of us have had some toxic relationships, so we can always talk about that. You know, there are times like, say for instance, in relationships, and you know, your significant other may have, I don't know, they may have, done the ultimate. They may have put their hands on you, you know, and because you did not recognize toxicity the way that it was supposed to be. You didn't recognize that that was not healthy. Maybe you were not taught that that was not healthy. And what you end up doing was, because this person comes back and make promises to you, you have a tendency to go ahead, go along with it because they always do something nice for you after they get through putting their hands on you. It's still toxic behavior. That's still manipulative behavior. But when I decide that, okay, well, they're going to buy me some hair. I wanted that expensive hair. And I know they'll do anything to get into my good graces. Or I'm going to go get my nails done, or I'm going to go spend up all that money. Guess what you just did? You just manipulated too. Because, see, that's a transactional relationship, but if they never won. Because And can you believe that some people, they know that that's how they gonna get the stuff that they want out of their mates? Y'all start a fight with each other, just toxic, just toe up from the floor up. Y'all start a fight with each other, and both of y'all already know if I start a fight with her, maybe I can get up with my point across that, I need to have sex on a daily basis, whatever. And then all of a sudden you give in because you already know once he gets what he wants, then he gonna buy you what you want. That's toxicity, and that is what you call manipulation. Both of you playing a game on each other. So somebody get tired. Those are little red flags of things that you have to pick up early. Toxic, even gaslighting is another one. Gaslighting and emotional abuse. Don't y'all get quiet on me as if these things are going on in y'all life, or if it ain't never one went on in your life. See, you got to expose that stuff. And ladies, I'm gonna say this, and I'm saying ladies because most of the time it's mostly ladies that are on my feeds. You have to get that up out you, especially if you got girls in your life. Because if you don't get that behavior out of you, that thing is going to transfer over to your daughters. And I say to my men also, if that thing is in you and you got daughters, you want to deal with that. Because I've seen the history to where a man has been very abusive and brought this toxic behavior around his family, and then his child, especially his daughter, ended up going through the same thing, even though he never treated her like that. He never taught her per se that was the relationship, that was the type of behavior she was supposed to put up with, but you didn't clean it up. You didn't get it straight within your husband and wife relationship. The children end up picking up on the same thing. It's called what you sow, you end up reaping it. See, payback don't always come back right away. Sometimes it comes in the next generation. That's why it's important that we make sure that we recognize these things, clean that stuff up as early as you can, because you don't want that stuff transferring over to your daughters. See, that's how you recognize game when a man is playing some kind of trick on your daughter, or even women when men are playing tricks on your sons, because we never got that thing up out of us to where we talked about it and we put it in the atmosphere so that you would be aware of that. This thing called gaslighting is another one. Kind of hyping them up and making them feel good, and and it's emotional abuse. Understanding how these dynamics affect self-esteem and perception. When you gaslight me, you just pumping me up, and you giving me all these good conversations, and they do that a lot in dating, y'all. They give you all this good conversation, because 9 times out of 10 is something they want to get from you. They do that on the job too. They know how to gaslight you on the job. They know how to pump you up real good, and they really don't have they really don't care about you or whatever. And this is not on every job. They really don't care about you. They just really want to get something out of you. They want to get the job out of you. And they'll say things like, by any means necessary. That's gaslighting. Anytime you're not coming truthful with things, and you gotta pump. You gotta, what they say, press the gas on something. You got to put it on real strong so they can come in and do what you want them to do. That's toxic behavior, because you haven't found another way to go about doing things. Emotional abuse is toxic, y'all. When a person calls you out of your name, when somebody calls you outside of something that you have identified as who you are, you stupid, you know, you something wrong with you. Y'all, my granddaughter said something the other day, and she's having to learn through this stage. Um, and I got what she was saying, and I understood where she was coming from with it. And she said some people got bird behavior. And I said, do what? And she said they got bird behavior. And not that I could keep up with my granddaughter, but she getting a little, a little savvy with some stuff. I said, tell me what you mean by bird behavior. She said, Granny, they just like birds. And she kept going on, the way they act, the way they talk, all that. I said, oh, they bird brain. She said, exactly. They're like bird brains, like they can't think. I said, oh, so that's a word now that people are using? They're acting bird brain. So anyway, we were talking about it. I understood where she was coming from. And I said, Jordan, let's go. And I was introducing her to Copilot. And I said, Jordan, let's go to Copilot and see if Copilot knows anything about this thing called bird or whatever, bird behavior. That's what she called it, bird behavior. How about Copilot knew exactly what she was saying? And the guy that he's always my person that talks to me on it. It's almost like we have a working relationship with each other. And the first thing he said was, be careful when you use the type of phrase bird, because it can come off as offensive when you say things like that. But he went on to talk about what it was like to have bird-like behavior. He talked about the feathers, and one day I'm gonna teach on it one day about the feathers and what they represent, and even the bill and what it represents or whatever. And Jordan had a good concept of what she had a good knowledge of what she was talking about. And I said, oh, so you're saying that sometimes people are acting as if they don't know what to do. She said, yes, they tolerate things that they should not be tolerating. They allow things to happen when they seem like they can't think for themselves. I said, oh, okay, I get it. Sometimes with that, have y'all ever heard of that before? Sometimes with that type of behavior, it's coming from some suppressed emotional abuse, because some things we don't stand up to is because we don't recognize it or whatever the case may be. It's a little hard to identify because you're trying to figure out, were they trying to criticize me? Were they trying to offend me or anything? Y'all, every time I get ready to do a teaching or whatever, I love listening to relationship podcasts. I love to get engaged in, what other people are dealing with so that I can maybe kind of get an understanding of what this bird thing is or any other thing that's out there. So the other day I was trying to find something to watch on TV, and we don't have cable. We just do internet. So all of the little engines, that's a new one for us, Maria. All the little apps out there were, and I didn't know which one I wanted to go in. And y'all, there is this show called Never Ever Met. I'm not quite sure what app it's on or whatever, but it's called Never Ever Met. And it's a show about people that meet one another on social media, but they've never met each other physically. They talk on social media all the time. They do the FaceTime, and they've literally developed relationship with people that they have never physically met. One of the ladies, she had met this guy. It had been 3 months. They had never met each other. There was another one on there. It had been 6 months and they had never met each other. Now, mind you, they are developing a strong emotional bond with each other. They're dealing with life as if they are really dating each other. They've been in the company of each other, and they get angry with each other, make up with each other. They do all of that. So, anyway, it goes on. There are other ladies in there, y'all. It's been 2 years and they have not met each other. Goes on. There's one that it has been, I think it had been 5 years, and they live in the same city. They live in the same state, in the same city. Okay. And the one that was the kicker was the one that had been in a relationship with somebody online for 12 years and they had never met them. Very interesting show, y'all. So anyway, what happens is it's kind of like um, it's a dating show to where they finally get a chance to meet. It's either love it or lose it or something like that. So they have a career coach that's or a relationship coach that's there that helps them to navigate through this thing. So what they do is she contacts both parties and brings them together. Finally makes it to where they can come together. So anyway, I don't know how she got them to come together and they couldn't come together. I don't know if they paid them. I don't know what they did. But everybody is responsible for getting there. They're living in the same house. They're doing all these things. So anyway, the gentlemen were given the task of creating the best first date that they could ever create. Mind you, every one of them did a fantastic job. Every one of them. They had listened to the women very carefully. They learned what the women wanted. I was just really just floored with them. But there was this one couple that came, and this bird brain, this bird thing that my granddaughter was talking about, I said, this is what she's talking about right here. So this lady comes in and she meets this guy. First of all, she's dressed very provocative. Most of them were. They were dressed very provocative, but this one was just over the top. Her cleavage was very, very low, clothes that she had on, all of that kinds of stuff. So anyway, they get there, they see each other, and she's just going out, just talking and talking and talking. So they finally meet each other. Both of them are very territorial. Both of them toxic, very territorial, don't really want the other one talking to anybody, all this. Now, mind you, this couple was one, I think they had been seeing each other for maybe 2 years or whatever. They should have known a little bit about each other, but when they came in company with each other, they learned a little bit more than normal. So anyway, I'm watching carefully, because that's what I do. I pay attention to relationships, how people navigating through stuff, and how y'all going 12 years, how y'all going 6, 7, 9 months and not seeing each other, all those kind of things. So I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. So as we go on through this couple right here, they've already stressed that they do not care for the other one, flirting, doing all these kind of things. Some kind of way the lady must have forgot. Okay. So they get back to the house with everybody, and she gets very excited, about being there. And she does to me, she starts talking to all the other men in the house. She's making flirtatious comments toward them. And the other gentleman is not liking it at all. He tries his best to hold himself together, tries to not say anything, y'all, until he just couldn't take it anymore. And he finally told her, he said, so you just gonna do this right in my face like that? And she said, what? What are you, y'all gotta go watch the show. She said, what? What are you talking about? Y'all, I knew exactly what he was talking about. The gentleman had already told you what he did not like. Both of y'all supposedly had agreed upon that, but it was obvious that both of y'all enjoyed this toxic kind of thing. So anyway, it didn't make it any better because both of them had been drinking, all of this. But the lady, she was over the top with the things that she was doing. She started acting as if she didn't understand what he was saying, all this kind of stuff. And man, when he started talking abusively to her and he started getting ready to put his hands on her, y'all, she went and got a frying pan, a pot or a frying pan. She was about to clock him with that thing. Toxicity, both of them. Both of them had very, very toxic behavior before they got there. The emotional abuse, it was coming out, and who you think you are, you ain't finna be putting your hands on me, and you gonna hit me because of, y'all have to go watch it. I say without a shadow of a doubt that this girl stirred this thing up on her own. Then she had the nerve to try to make everybody else feel sorry for her as if that was done wrongly to her. This is what we call that gaslighting stuff. That's that emotional abuse when you both are not drawing the line as to what you guys need. First of all, this long relationship probably should have been put to an end early. I love what the relationship coach did. She allowed the gentleman. She put them. They put him out, made him go stay at a hotel, left the young lady there. But the next day they had to deal with it. So the relationship coach comes out and she wants to hear the story about what happened. He's not putting his hand, all this kind of stuff. And I'm saying to myself, you're used to this. This ain't nothing new to you doing this. So anyway, she thought she had gotten away with it. How about the relationship coach said, both of y'all got to go home? There's a zero tolerance of putting your hands on anybody. And she said, because you put your hands on him too, both of y'all got to go home. That's that toxic stuff, red flags, different things that are going on. But what happens is a lot of time, what people will do, they will deal with that behavior. And 9 times out of 10, if they would have let that guy come back to the room, they would have made up with each other. Both of them were probably used to the toxic stuff and they've learned how to deal with it. This is what happens even in our own lives. There are some things that we find ourselves, hey, Mrs. Charlotte, we just start dealing with stuff as if we don't understand what that stuff can do to us later on. I don't know if it's somewhere where we are, feeling less than about ourselves. And if any of you guys are dealing with these kinds of things, listen, pay attention to the message tonight. You either feeling low about yourself to where you just tolerate things, you have made it up in your mind that a piece of man is better than no man, or a piece of woman is better than nothing, and or else I don't know how to work through this toxic stuff because everybody, this is what we do, we make up excuses and say everybody going through something in their relationships. Yeah, they are, but you got to choose which one you decide to go through. You have to make that as a value system within you before you start tolerating, because that very thing that I just mentioned to you about manipulation taking place, that's what's going to happen next. Because we learn the behavior of conducting ourselves like that, and it starts getting out of hand. Another thing, when you talk about control and manipulation, this is where one person constantly seeks to dominate or manipulate other people, and what it does, it limits their independence. You ever had somebody do you like that? Where they don't want you to talk for yourself. They don't want you to have an opinion about anything. They can't function well unless they are controlling the atmosphere. That's control and manipulation. And this is what you call toxic relationships. It could be controlling the finances, controlling your friendships, controlling the decisions that you make. They do it on the job too. I see this more with women working together than anything. If you ever just say, for instance, there are often times where we misunderstand the love that a person, or the genuine nature of a person. Hey there, Miss Anita. We misunderstand the genuine nature of a person, and we're not used to people being nice to us or being kind to us, or having soft skills or different things like that. And people start determining that you're weak. You know how to say I'm sorry. You know how to make corrections with things. And there are some people that get very agitated with that, and they take that as a form to where, oh, this is somebody that I can take advantage of. And so what they do, they start controlling your everything. You ever had anybody slap you on the hand for everything you do, slap you on the wrist for everything you do? They make corrections about everything you do. That's toxic behavior. When we are adults, we should be treated like adults. There should not be anybody that has to walk around holding your hand 24 hours a day. Pick up that paper over there. No, don't do that. Make sure you get this done at this time, whatever. You should have a form of autonomy, and you got to learn how to speak up for yourself, because if you don't speak up for yourself, people that have controlling behaviors don't know where to stop. They don't know how to cut it off. And a lot of it is because somewhere somebody is not letting them, I don't know, be themselves. And sometimes this stuff can come from childhood, y'all. Some of us grew up in, households to where our parents told us what to do all the time, when to get up, when to go to bed, and how to pay your bills, and who you need to talk to, who you don't need to talk to, and you don't know how to make decisions for yourself. This is just how easy control and manipulation can come in. Anytime that you are not able to foster a healthy connection with someone to say, I don't like the way that's being done. No, that doesn't fit me or whatever. It's going to create some toxicity. Y'all, I watch my grandson, James. Yeah, James he is one of the best of not letting nobody control him. He is very concerned. He's gonna yes ma'am you, no ma'am you. He's gonna tell you he loved you 1,000 times a day, but you're not gonna disrespect him in no way. If you say something to James that registers wrong with him, James said, no, that's not true. That's not what that is. And I keep saying, I said, I hope he keeps that, think about himself, because a lot of time when you're very kind, people don't know how far to go with the kindness. And if you're going to, you know, um, um, walk with that's the grace that God has given to you. You got to learn how to handle that, because a lot of people don't know where the cutoff button is, and they'll keep doing things. And then we have people that are very passive and very, what they say, passive aggression, to where they just start running away from you. They just start ignoring you. But y'all, we are adults, and you have to recognize when toxic behavior is coming in, and you got to take a little chill moment to figure out how you're gonna deal with that. But running from it is not an option. You have to learn how to speak up on behalf of things, because if you don't, it leads to the next thing called lack of respect. See, when you let people start getting away with things on one level, they'll come in with another one. They'll start saying anything to you. They'll treat everybody else good, but they'll treat you bad. That means they know how to treat people. They just determining that they're not treating you like that. And sometimes it's because we teach people how to treat us. They come in with disrespectful language. They curse around you a lot. They complain around you a whole lot. They have very dismissive behaviors. You saying something, they try to ignore you or whatever. Or they do little things like belittling. I had this lady do something to me. This had to have been like Thursday or whatever, and I said, "Wow, I feel very bad now." And I was trying to let them know, you got your point across. Whatever was done, we're not kids. And but I made up my mind that day that'll be the last day that happens. I'm not quite sure where that behavior comes from, but we are adults, and adults don't do each other like that. It doesn't bother. It doesn't. That's not my problem that you let somebody else do you like that. But you're not going to transfer that behavior over to make everybody else deal with what you won't deal with. And that's a lot of times what happens when it comes with that very dismissive behavior. You didn't deal with it where you're supposed to deal with it, and now you're pushing it off on other people. Am I making sense to y'all? Now you're pushing it off on others, and you have to let people know where to draw the line. No, you may have dealt with that in one area. That was your choice, the way you dealt with that. But here, let's learn how to use our language well. Let's learn how to use our words properly. If you're frustrated about something, let's talk about what you're frustrated about. But let's not use this, it's trying to make a person feel bad, belittling them, little things like, because to be honest, that speaks more about you than it does about the person, especially when this person is very kind to you. It speaks a lot about yourself. The next thing is emotional and physical abuse. That's one that I think most of us are very familiar with. This is when people use aggression, and they can use aggression with their tone, the way they talk. They throw out different threats with different things. Hello, Shawana. They throw out different threats or whatever. They bring intimidation in, try to make you feel small, different things like that. And sometimes they even do subtle things or do things in disguise. They won't do it directly in front of you. They wait till a crowd comes along and they start doing it. Y'all ever had people do that to you? They won't say nothing to you. They just wait till a crowd comes around and they start doing it. They emotional and physical abuse. That's toxic behavior. Anything that uses a form of aggression to get the point across, and y'all, we have to teach people, let's be adults and let's use our words properly. I understand that life happens to us all, but let's not make that a norm. Let's normalize being treated well. Okay. And I get it. You got y'all. I had to say something to a gentleman um, a while back about some conversation that he had, um, and I'd heard all the stories, this and that about how he may have come up, but I never gave him an indicator in any kind of way that that was tolerated in my life. I'm just being sympathetic between and what it is that you've dealt with, and they kept saying something, and I let it pass a couple of times, but that it was bothering my spirit. And when it starts bothering my spirit, this is when the Lord starts waking you up in the middle of the night. It's almost like, what are you going to do with that conversation that just took place? And y'all, I couldn't go to sleep, and I was thinking like, okay, God, is this something that we need to address right now, whatever, because I don't like conflict or whatever. And I try to give people the benefit of the doubt. And when I heard them continually saying it, I said, that's enough. That's when I tell you absolutely enough. And when I finally spoke up about it, I think I waited too long to say something because I think I hurt their feelings the way they said it. And I'm thinking, why is it that you did not know that what you were saying was not good? Because my thoughts were, it's the very things that you just said that you didn't like other people doing to you. See, sometimes we take on emotional and physical abuse as if it's okay, calling people out of their name. Maybe you and your family, y'all used to do that or whatever. And then you get with somebody that has value with themselves and they don't talk like that. And they stand up for it. It can bring an alarm, you know, and I believe it. I believe it's supposed to maybe hurt you because it snaps you up out of it to let you know you should not be tolerating that either. People talking to you like that, saying things like that, emotional, physical abuse. And listen, you got to deal with those things early in life because the more you allow it, allow things to, kind of be swept up on the rug, the harder it is to deal with it. The harder it is to deal with because somewhere you suppress the thing and you didn't use your power, your superpower to open up your mouth and say something. Now it's hard. You ever had something to smother you? You don't speak as bold as you used to. You're not as confident. These are where the signs of abuse come out. You're not as confident as you used to be, or you're not as forthgoing as you used to be. You used to be the one that you couldn't wait to be the one that was standing up. They called upon you on the job and wanted somebody to get this project going or whatever. You were one of the first ones that wanted to do it, but now you just want to stay at your desk and you don't want to talk to anybody. You don't want to go to any other family events anymore, or you know you don't even want to get up and get dressed anymore. That those are signs. Those are spiritual signs of toxicity that's in you somewhere. If you think about it, if you get poison in you in any kind of way, this thing is going to stop your movement, whether it's physical, thinking, spiritual. Anything toxic getting inside of you, it is going to limit your impairment. And you're not going to be able to function like you used to. So paying attention to it. Y'all, these are some of the signs, these are some of the things that I've had to pay attention to in my life when something was not good for me. And it could have been on multiple levels or whatever. I started checking to see how my behavior has changed. And and the earlier in life, I would kind of tolerate things a little bit more. And I'd go through this place. The man got cleaned up. I wouldn't dare let anybody come like that again. And then it'll settle the seat, try to come back in again. And like, no, 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 we're not doing that. And then somewhere along the way, you end up tolerating it anyway. And because one is hard for me to hurt somebody else's feeling. This the way I used to feel. It's hard for me to hurt somebody else's feeling and tell them about something that's very toxic that I think they should already know about. That to me, it's almost like treating them like a child, almost treating them kind of like they treat you. And I have to come back and think, you know what? The behavior just needs to stop. And you have to learn how to deal with that thing in some kind of way. That gaslighting, it's the same thing. It's when someone makes you doubt your reality or your feelings. It's like they try to talk over you. That's not really what happened. That wasn't even what I was doing. That's talking over somebody. You're trying to make me think I'm crazy. You trying to play on my intelligence. I know exactly what I felt in my spirit, first of all. And there are times when you have to speak up about different things that are going on. Jealousy is another one. Possessiveness, when people are very jealous and possessed. This is extreme insecurity. It's not the jealousy like, you know what, I don't want anybody messing with something that belongs to me, or something that I feel like I'm protecting over, whatever. It's an extreme insecurity. Like if you go outside and the first thing somebody thinks is, you going out to do something other than what you said you were doing. You go to the grocery store and they following you to the grocery store, and or you could deal with it on the job. You supposed to be getting a project turned in, and it's like somebody want to beat you to the punch. All kinds of things. It's extreme insecurities that need to be dealt with on a more personal level. Because if you don't deal with it on a personal level, you're going to pour it out on other people. And somebody's going to have to deal with your pain somewhere along the way. Anytime that we don't take our time to address the issues of life that we deal with, somebody else is going to have to deal with. That's why a lot of times people, they leave home and they leave very toxic environments, and they go into relationships and they swear up and down, I don't want none of that stuff going on in my new relationship, but you didn't get it out of you. And what do you think is going to happen? Anytime you find little dormant moments, that little old enemy starts creeping up in your mind. All those insecurities start coming up. And then the next thing you know, we call this thing sabotaging relationships by extreme insecurities, or jealousy that leads to controlling behaviors. No, you're not going anywhere. You ain't going to, if we ain't going together, ain't nobody going nowhere. These are just wild things that go on. And I know all of us are related to. See, when y'all get quiet, I know you're listening. I know these are things that are taking place out there. And these are the things that cause us to have to start all over again. And then you try to make up your mind whether I don't want to do that no more. I don't want to go look for no other job. I don't want to be a part of no other church. I don't want to be a part of no friendship. I don't want to, because you sat around and dealt with that toxicity because maybe you didn't know how to handle it or how to deal with it. So we're going to look at the impact of it, what it does to you, and then we're going to talk about breaking free from that. We can't leave without talking about breaking free from it, because I know that it's happening out there. When I sometimes I'll tell, when we're in our mentorship classes or whatever, in the early morning classes, I used to tell ladies all the time, I could tell when y'all got into something. You start disappearing. And I'm not talking about promotion, job, things like that, relationship. They drain you. Bad relationships will drain you. And the things that you used to find joy in, you no longer find joy in. And I'd always tell them, I can tell when y'all done got into something. Y'all get so quiet. See, because A positive relationship brings out a greater value of who you are. It does not take away from you. It adds to you, to where if you were very jolly by yourself and you get into good relationships, you get into good jobs, you get into good settings in your church, whatever your environment is, it brings out a greater value of who you are. Anytime it starts taking away, it is a sign that something toxic is around you. You know, you don't want to tell nobody about it. You know, people very secretive. When I find people that are very secretive, it's some toxicity around them. I know that it is. You're not that secretive about everything. It's always something you got to watch out for. That's because there's a lot of toxic stuff and you haven't learned how to deal with it. You haven't found freedom in your life. And so a lot of times we have to back up and we have to you know what? I'm tired of going to work with a stomach ache. I got ulcers in my stomach. You know, y'all, I remember right before I got ready to leave Carrier, I was working at this plant back home. And y'all, it got to the point every time I went in that place, my stomach would start hurting. I would literally get agitated. I mean, to like, it was just getting to. Now, by this time, I had given my life to the Lord, and there were spiritual signs that I was needing to pay attention to, that the Lord had given me the okay to do something different. But if I had not grown spiritually, I would have just thought I was sick. I wasn't sick. I needed to get out of what I called a place that was you know, there was no vision for growth as to what I saw it as. And y'all, I got to the point I don't like this feeling, because I know what it's like to be in a place where I feel good all day long about myself, and I just love being in this setting. But when I get here, my stomach just ache. It's some people you can be around that does that to you too. Even before you come in there, cause you can work yourself up, and man, it's gonna be a good day. But the more you keep thinking about being around them, that thing starts hitting your belly. You know, it just does something to you. Y'all, listen. One of the things that I have learned is to pay attention when the Spirit reveals something to you. You may not know how to handle it or what to do with it, but you need to pay attention when the Spirit reveals something to you. And most of the time, you feel it on the inside. There's like a, there's like a all of a sudden moment that comes in. But most of the time, what we do, we bypass it as if the Spirit didn't say nothing. That's why the scripture says that, the day you hear my voice, don't harden your heart. Don't harden your heart. Pay attention. You listen. You don't have to go overboard with things. Make a big old scene like the girl did on the show. You just need to pay attention. She could have really played that off, especially if she thought that guy was abusive or whatever. First of all, she could have shut her mouth. But it was the alcohol in her too that was causing a lot of it. And so now they both talking under the influence. And sometimes you can get around people that don't bring out the best in you. But when you find yourself in environments like that, first of all, pay attention in the spirit to the things that people say. Pay attention to a person's movement, the way they move, the way they stop talking to you, the way that they, it's just a little something. Listen, they were very talking before, now they more. The spirit always reveals first. Always. It's up to us to pay attention and then to go back to the Father on behalf of what. So when the ways to deal with this toxic behavior, first of all, recognize the signs that something is toxic about what we're doing. Okay. We're going to spend up all our money when we know we got bills to pay. See, you can have toxicity with that, with overspending. Some ain't right about this. Yeah, we make it up, but God, dog, look at the stuff we got to go through to make it up. We got to start recognizing. Every individual has to recognize their part. It's not for you to recognize somebody else's part, because you can't change other people. but you do need to recognize the part that you play in it. Acknowledge red flags, like what you call manipulation. When you see things like manipulation or control or constant negativity, those are signs. Bad language definitely is another one, Anita. I like that. Recognize when you see the signs of things like that, and then trust your instincts. If you feel emotionally drained or unvalued, these are times where you need to start journaling, guys. You need to start journaling. With the very moment that you start thinking that something toxic may be in there, that's whether it's home, whether it's family, whether it's in your finance, whether it's on your job, in your church, whatever, before you act out on it, start journaling. Because you're journaling, if you make it a point to journal about whatever that is, see, you journal what's with you in the moment. You can easily forget it when you get out of the moment or whatever. But when you journal, you done already wrote it down. So when you go back the next day and you start thinking about what it was that may have been taking place or whatever, oh, I'm not sure, whatever, go back, check your journal and see what your journal says. Recognize the signs that are there. Then this is something you can do. You can journal people, places, and things. This is how I got out of a lot of stuff in my life, because it was a lot of I don't know, it was just some unacceptable things that did not register with the person that I am. I started journaling people, places, and things. When I wake up in the morning, who are the people that's on my heart and on my mind? Okay. And then not only am I journaling the people, how do I feel when that person is on my mind? Do I feel happy? Do I feel excited? Or do I feel kind of Mayweathered a little bit, like I could take it or leave it? Or do I just feel drained? Do I start making up excuses already about things that I don't want to come in contact with them or whatever? Journal the people, okay? And then if it's more than one, start thinking about what's the relationship between y'all. See, because there are some relationships that it's a no-brainer. They're not a part of your family circle. It's not like people that you have to have around. Even your family circle, you can do that with them as well. You need to find out what the relationship is. If it's your spouse, okay, that's a different thing. You have to handle things a little bit different, and you have to be wise. If it's your children, you got to handle things a little bit different. But if they are outsiders, those are the first ones that get moved. It's kind of like the orchestra when we're putting people in the chair that they need to be in, and they're making a bad noise. Y'all don't have anything to do with each other. You can put them out the room first of all. See, because you got to be able to deal with you got to have the energy and the strength to deal with the things that matter the most to you. See, because if you're expending your energies on all of these toxic areas, you don't know what you need to, hold on to and what you need to fold with. The Bible talks about letting the wheat and the tare grow up together, and God will do the separating. There are some things they're just not. That's a non-negotiable. My family, that's a non-negotiable. So we're gonna have to learn how to deal with this. I may have to kind of separate some clothes for a little bit, put everything where it belongs, so that I can make room to deal with whatever this toxicity that is that's going on. But an outsider gets put out real quick. People, places, the places that maybe the toxic behavior could be the home that you're living in. May not have anything to do with the people that's in it. Could be just the environment. It could be gunshots going off all the time. It could be that ain't nothing working, landlord ain't fixing stuff, or it could be that how it is when y'all start getting behind on bills and money and all that kind of stuff. The house ain't no home no more. Jot that stuff down, write that stuff down. How are you feeling about it? What does the house have anything to do with it? It's just somebody. Every time I go in the house, I feel like that. What's wrong? I don't know. It just seems like things are out of order. And then if you keep journaling, you'll talk yourself into what's going on. We ain't never got no money to do nothing. Okay, that's some toxic spending somewhere. And we need to figure out, what do we need to do? We're not gonna cuss it out. We can't fuss it out. We got to figure out a way to handle whatever the issue is. Does that make sense? You have to find a way to handle this. So you got to journal these things down. If it's things, okay, what about the things? It's, I don't know. I'm not happy with these things that I have. I just don't feel good about it, or maybe I'm, I don't know, you may have a little bit of jealousy within you. You got to recognize the signs that are there and be ready to do something. Next thing is set some boundaries in your life. Find out find out what you can deal with and what you can't deal with. Clearly define what behavior is acceptable and what is not. Something we just throw temper tantrums. Sometimes we just say, I can't deal with it, I can't handle it. Those are some words you may need to get out of your mouth. In your relationships, you can't keep saying, well, you know what? Well, fine. Do whatever you want to do, fine. Toxicity, you're not dealing with things properly. And people are looking at you like, do what? Whatever you want to do, fine. That's not handling an issue. You got to go in and set some clearly define what behavior is acceptable and what is not. There's some things just need to be thrown away. You want to be in a relationship, in a marriage, some stuff you got to get rid of, like murmuring and complaining and whining and putting people down, different things like that. Set some clear boundaries. And then the other party, that things may be done to before we establish that we're going to do anything together, job, project, whatever. We're going to have to set some boundaries. We can't talk to each other like that. It creates such a negative environment that we won't be able to get anything done. Somebody's going to have some sense in the relationship so that we can sit down and get to the bottom of whatever is wrong. Communicate these boundaries assertively, not in a matter of fact kind of way, and consistently, because sometimes people forget what you just said. Set some boundaries. Sometimes you may have to put some distance in between things too, because sometimes it takes some people a little while to understand what you just said and that I meant what I said, and I don't want to keep repeating that, you know. And I know these are some tough things to talk about, but y'all go back and listen to the replay over and over again. If you know this is an area that you're dealing with a lot of toxic behaviors and you're trying to figure out how to get out of it, set those boundaries. Then first recognize the signs. Ms. Marilyn talking about me tonight. You got to set some boundaries. And then the next thing, you're going to have to seek some support. You already know you can't do it on your own. You've already tried it. It doesn't work out for you like that. So now I got to seek out some support. That's what these support groups are about, so that I could talk it out. I could talk it out here so that I not be so rough in the other areas. You can get through anything that you make up your mind that you want to get through. But you do need to have some good sounding boards to talk about things. People that's not going to criticize you or anything. That may be an entrusted friend, a family member. It could be a church member. Make sure it's people that have your best interest at heart. They're not repeating things that you say. And it could be a therapist that you go to for guidance. Maybe you don't trust the people around. You got to go to somebody that don't know you or anything. You got to try those things. And then the last thing is you got to prioritize self-care. That's what I want to leave y'all with. I want you to prioritize, make self-care normal. Okay. I do matter. How I feel about a thing, how I want to be treated. I mean, that's a fair behavior. I don't want to treat anybody any way that I don't want somebody to treat me. So I'm going to give what we call the spirit of reciprocity. I'm going to be just as good to you as I want you to be to me. And sometimes you have to initiate that type of language so that people will, really take you serious about what it is that you have said, and not feel like you may be, oh, they just saying that today and they don't really mean it or anything like that. Yeah, we really do mean it, because the next thing that happens, because if we don't learn how to respect one another, there's going to be this thing called separation to take place. And we don't always want to have to go to separation as the only resort to something, especially when we can handle things better than what we do. It's all about making sure that you, first of all, recognize that there are some bad relationships out there, some things that just don't do you well. They just don't fit you very well. And you have to open up and say something about that. It does not mean that, it's the worst thing in the world or anything like that. But to be honest, you know what? We may have to put some, we're gonna have to talk about what we both need a little bit more so that we can make sure to navigate through some of the things in life a lot better. And that may require that you build a good support system. That's what a lot of people do when they come into our ministry. They come in to create great support systems around them to where, they literally, decide that, I'm better than that. And you do that in a way to where you don't feel like you always have to be the end of somebody's story. Like, say for instance, you feel jealous because other people are maybe having better relationships than you are, or that's what you feel. You don't really know whether they are or not. You just know that you don't like the treatment that is going on around you. And so what happens is you have to make it up in your mind to want something different. And y'all, I'm telling you, it does not take us long to come out of different things, but you do have to make up your mind that I deserve better, that I deserve better in life. I'm gonna talk to myself in a better way than what I've been doing so that I don't one misrepresent who I am, because people, you teach people how to treat you. You really do. You teach people how to treat you, and when they start treating you a certain way, there's no sense in us acting as if, oh, they just did that because they just whatever. A lot of things are learned behavior. So one of the reasons that I'm coming and talking about these things, it is because I want to see people live better lives. I want us to change our stories. I want you to normalize you being good to you. I want you to normalize you deserve great things in life. You know, you don't always have to be at the end of how it is. I'm the butt end of somebody's joke. You do not have to do that. You know, you don't always have to be the one that feel like you gotta go, run to the, I don't know, the fountain, the water fountain all the time so you can keep up with everybody, even when they treating you bad. You can choose to go sit at your desk and stay at your desk. You don't have to be in every conversation with everybody, I promise you. Because there may be some things you need to work on by yourself to where being around too many people may not be healthy for you right now, because you're trying to deal with some inner struggles that's within myself. I'm trying to understand, when did I allow that to take place? Y'all, that's how I am, like with my daughters or anybody that's close to me. One of the first questions I ask them, when did you give yourself permission to be treated like that? When did you give yourself permission to be treated like that? Because the very moment that you gave yourself permission to do it, that's when people kept doing what they were doing. You have to open up. You got to speak up. It ain't the end of the world, I promise you. You just have to determine within yourself that I want something better for my life. Now, what that means to everybody tonight, I don't know, because I don't know what your situation is. You may have to get to the point to where you go talk to somebody about, whatever. And listen, those first conversations may be nothing but tears. Because sometimes we can have a hurt that's so deep inside of us. I can't believe I let myself go through this. I can't believe that I did not recognize the signs. I saw my daddy do my mama like that. I saw my mama do my dad like that. And I told myself I wasn't going to never get myself into that. Or I'm sitting here watching my daughter go through some things that I should have talked to her about a long time ago, or my son. And the thing is, the moment that you notice it and you start paying attention to it, that's when you want to pick up the pace and start doing something different. Now, mind you, when you do start speaking up for yourself, everybody's not going to like that, because that same way that you taught them how to treat you, now you're going to have to unteach them. And sometimes you may have to walk alone for a little while. because that don't sit well with people when they have learned, when they are using toxicity as a emotional or a manipulation tactic. It's a controlling figure. To be honest, it ain't got nothing to do with you. It has a lot to do with the way that they treat themselves. And that manipulation and control, that means they losing control somewhere. They feel like maybe I don't have a voice and I'm gonna have to speak up about things. All you gotta do is put them in another environment around some other people and see how they act. They'll always treat them like they treat you. That's an indicator that they feel like they're losing on some other end. And sometimes we do have to put some space in between some things so everybody can kind of go to their corners and think about what it is that they're doing and what they're bringing to the table. Because it's like what my daughter is doing right now. She's building up these affirmations. You got to get some good affirmations down on the inside of you. I am good enough. You know, God, everything that God has in my life, it's good. You know, I expect good things to happen for me. You know, I am the head and I'm not the tail. I am above and I am not beneath. You know, I'm a lender, I'm not a borrower. I will not treat myself in an unhealthy way, all because I don't feel like I deserve it. You deserve that and more. You deserve to be treated very well by everybody that you come in contact with. The same measure that you mete out, it should be coming back to you. And any time that you don't see that measure coming back to you like that, you ought to stop and question, what am I doing to myself? Am I tolerating some things? And then you want to try to get some help. That's how can I do this a lot better? It may be just a little bit of tweaking that you need to do. It may be just a little bit of adjustment that you need to do. But more than anything, you got to start loving on yourself. And you got to start pouring out some good things in the atmosphere. I don't care what you're going through. You're going to have to get some on the ground. I got to get some good words. Even if I don't just let me just send it out toward children. Because what I'm doing, I'm making the same thing I make happen for somebody else, I'm making happen for myself. I'm going to call those things that be not as though they already are. I know that my God is able. He's able to do exceedingly. He's able to do abundantly. Above all, I can ask or think. I know he can. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put myself in position so that I can receive all that God has for me. But you got to start treating yourself well. You got to start thinking well of yourself. Your job, on your church, everywhere you go, you do not have to be mistreated, guys. Toxic relationships are not good for you. You want to get to a point to where you know everywhere you go, the joy of the Lord is your strength. That counts up on my face. Ain't nobody finna get ready to take that away from me. Not now, not never. You're not gonna take that away from me. First of all, you didn't give it to me. You can't take it from me. And I'm not gonna try to throw heat back at you the way you throw it at me. I'm gonna show you who I am by the way I treat myself. Maybe you've never seen anybody treat themselves like that. Because ladies, I'm gonna tell you something. If we don't get this thing straightened out, we're gonna miss out on some wonderful opportunities in life. You're gonna miss out on some good promotions in life, some good relationships with your mates in life, redeeming even, some good connections with your family. You don't stop and work that toxic stuff up out of you. You start treating yourself well, start talking to yourself well. Everything you do, speak well of you. Yes, I love that, Shanita. Learn how to love yourself and be honest about it. I gotta learn how to love me, because sometimes the behavior that I was getting back, it was not an indicator of love. And the Bible says, I reap what I sow. I didn't sow that. If I didn't sow it, I ain't got to reap it. So what I'm going to do is, just in case I got some bad behavior out there, I'm going to start putting some good things in the atmosphere. I'm going to start thinking about others the way I think of myself. You're going to know how to treat me by the way I treat me. We're not going to have no mistake about this. And if I have to confront you about some things, don't you get mad about it, because there should have been some discernment that went off to let you know that wasn't cool. You don't like it when it happens to you, don't do it to anybody else. Amen. Well, that's my word tonight. I pray that you guys have enjoyed the conversation. I could talk about this all day long because I do not like mistreatment on any level. I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's necessary. It is bad behavior. You got to learn how to get good language out of your mouth every day. I want you to wake up with the joy of the Lord be in your strength. If you got to be by yourself for a little while, I'd rather be by myself and happy than with folks that I think I love that don't love me back. I'd rather be by myself. Let me get this thing together, so we can have some good energy around here. Now we can come back and sit down at the table and play some cards and act like we got some sense. And we can come in and walk in the house and say hello to everybody when we walk in. Or we can come in and I don't mind coming in and cooking a dinner for you because I feel good because I'm hungry too. I want to eat too. It's just little bitty things, guys. It just shows signs of healthy relationships around you by the way you treat yourself. It's just simple. Just as simple as that. God ain't just doing it for one and not doing it for us all. He's giving all of us an opportunity to live what we call the abundant life. Live it to the full until it overflows. Everywhere you go, your love toward yourself ought to be contagious. It ought to provoke folks to jealousy. It ought to want to make them act right. I want to know how they loving on themselves over there like that. Some of them get mad at you when they see it, but you ought to keep on doing it. Keep on provoking them to be jealous of the love that you have for yourself. Don't throw no heat back at them. That ain't how you treat you. Don't throw no heat at them. Just keep on loving everywhere you go. Everything you do. Let there be purpose behind it all. Amen. Well, that's my word for tonight. Y'all, listen, relationship, that's my baby. I just believe that it's the thing that makes the world go round. We got relationships at work. We got to learn how to treat them well. You work with people on the team, you got to learn how to treat them well. You got to do good with one another. You got to be kind to one another. You got to learn how to grow together. Sometimes there are some people that came in your life just for that very reason, to teach you how to love. You got to learn how to receive it. God, teach me how to love. This may be the answer that God gives you. Get involved in some other things, some type of outreach or whatever, so you can do some different things in life. Amen. Well, y'all, it's already 10 o'clock, y'all. We got to go to bed. But I just want to say thank y'all so much for joining in tonight. And just know that everything that was said tonight was done in the spirit of love and to bring some recognition to some things that are going on with you. And then also to give you some pointers on how to turn some things around. Amen. Get it together. Let's see if we can live what we call the abundant life. We live it to the full till it overflows. It'll give you strength to get up in the morning time. You want to get up and feed your kids. It'll make you want to get up and go to the grocery store. It'll make you want to get up and get back in the prayer on the praise team again. Maybe you want to get up and do that Bible study again. Get up, start loving on yourself so that you can have some better things in life. Amen. Well, that's my word today. I pray that you guys be blessed. Y'all come on back in every Wednesday night. Y'all, I may change that time a little bit because 8:30 may be just a little bit late. I was trying to wait on everybody to get out of Bible study, but I may have to turn it back until like 7:30 or whatever, so that we can have plenty of time to kind of touch base, and then everybody can go to bed. But meet us back again next Wednesday night for another lesson with relational real talk. It'll be good for you. You guys be blessed. Have a great one.
Carrying for the world, my shoulders are getting too heavy for me. Oh, what you leave? Life moves on, stuff breaks down, people fall off. Gotta find a way to get over. Gotta find a way to get through, break through. Yeah, troubles ain't last as time passed. It's been one thing to the other. Oh, oh, oh. I don't know if it's the right way. No, I don't really know. All I know is something happened when I don't you hey, you're never too big for me. You're never too big for me. Oh, I'm the star at the end of the road. Looking forward and I see it coming along. And I know which way to go. Feels so long. Life is so cold. I'm not very eloquent in speech. I don't always know like when to speak. Papa told me something. I know you will never in your nature.